everyone in the chat, make sure you put some hands up in the chat for Ed Brisson out here. Fantastic writer. I was just just glazing him up earlier for his awesome Ghost Rider run that was unceremoniously canceled. I'm still mad about that.
Me too.
Also to some fantastic stories you guys may or may not have heard of before, but I think you should go check out. Stuff like There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd, Beyond the Breach. Also did some amazing work on multiple different X-Men related titles. Some of my personal favorites that you've done. You handed in what I thought was some of the best Alpha Flight I had read in a long time. X-Men Extermination, X-Men Disassembled, all that good stuff. And you've also done a really awesome Thundercats Apex.
Thank you.
And you're here today. We're here to actually talk about some more Thundercats. And we got Thundercats Lost coming up. And I'm very excited for it. Just because it's bringing in some characters that I've been excited to see. But like you did Apex, obviously, so Dynamite knows that they recognize game. But how did you get in on this one?
It came as a package deal for with Apex. So when I was offered Apex, I was offered Lost at the same time. Obviously, I wasn't talking too much about it. Then I wanted to wait for them to announce it. So yeah, it was like kind of a 1-2 punch offer. So I think we talked about last time. I'm a fan of the Thundercats. I grew up with the Thundercats. I think a lot of people, now that the series is really kicking, they're excited to see like when do the season 2 Thundercats come in. The season 2 of the original cartoon introduced Bengali, Lynx-o, and Pamera. And so this is the answer. This is when they're coming in. They're coming in with Thundercats Lost in March. It ties kind of loosely to what we did in Apex. There's things that happen in Apex that we see the sort of fallout of in the first arc, second arc even of Thundercats Lost. But yeah, that's how I got it. I just was offered. I wish there was a more exciting story to it, but it was offered all kind of on the same day, and it was the same week that I was offered Silverhawks as well. So it was a pretty good week over here at Chez Brisson.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with securing the bag. Okay, there's nothing wrong with securing the bag. I respect it. I think it's awesome though, because for one, it lends a lot of consistency. Lends a lot of consistency to the Thundercats mythos with some of these extra stories that are being told to kind of help build up the story that we've been getting thus far in the main title, and having it all come from the same place. I appreciate that. But the thing I thought was really cool is that and I don't know if people really, I don't know if anyone really remembers this. Like, I know I do, but what I really dug about this was, not only you're bringing in those characters you mentioned earlier, Bengali and Pamira, and Lynx-o, but you're also bringing in like more characters. There's going to be some extra characters we're actually going to get to see that are going to be introduced in this. And like, how does it feel to add to that mythos?
Yeah, it's great, and that was one of the things I wanted to do going in. Is I wanted to add a couple of characters. I think, I don't know, it's just it's a fun bit of geekery you get to do when you're working on these things. And so Rafa and I sat down and talked over a couple of characters, and we have 2 new characters here. Her name is Nico, and she is sort of she's a snow leopard. She's a pretty fierce warrior, pretty intense, maybe more intense than any of the other Thundercats. She's very deadly, very tactically minded, very efficient, and at times very cruel. And then we have Ligon, who's the big guy over there,
Mm.
and he is a liger, which those do exist outside of. I know Napoleon Dynamite and famously used to draw
Yeah.
the liger all the time, but they're a legitimate thing. So there's two versions you can have when you cross a line and a tiger.
Mm.
So if you have, I believe the father is a lion and the tiger is a mother, then you get a a
Mm.
liger, sorry. If you have mother lion, father tiger, you get a tigon. Um, so ours is father lion, mother tiger, and the reason for that with that pairing, when you have ligers, they don't pass down a growth inhibitor. The father lion and the mother tiger don't have growth inhibitors that they pass to their offspring,
Mm.
and as a result, their offspring grow to be much larger than either parent. So like ligers in real life, which typically only exist in zoos, um, are ginormous. They're
Mm.
huge. They dwarf their parents, whereas Tigons on the other end tend to be a little bit smaller. So this guy, he's huge, he's large, he's much larger than any of the other Thundercats. But he's a bit of a softie. He's kind of he's the sort of moral and emotional center of the team, while being still like a bruiser on the battlefield.
Mm.
He's a big dude who can take folks out if he thinks anyone's messing with those who are near and dear to him. So
Well,
pretty excited to introduce two new characters.
I mean, I'm definitely interested. I love the look of them because and shout out to Rafa for like on the design front just because it's like it falls right in. Like it falls right in. It does it looks like it like for a moment before I actually like read a little bit more about it when the press release for it initially came out. I was like, oh wow, these like some characters that I just don't remember. So that's definitely a feather in the cap.
Yeah,
Definitely a feather in the cap.
that was something that was very important to us. They
Mm.
had to feel like they belonged, like they belong in this universe, and we didn't want it to feel like some sort of like, you know, patch that we just add, we just kind of tacked on to the team that doesn't quite fit. And yeah, Rafa did an incredible job. I think this is Clayton Henry on the cover here,
Mm.
who his interpretation of these characters is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And the thing is like with Thundercats Ho, which is where the main three were brought in. Like it was kind of all kind of taking us back to that moment of Thundera like crumbling. And in this like and it's something that we've seen kind of hints and glimmers of it in the main comic and in the Thundercats Chitara spinoff that Sue Lee did. But here, like it looks like we're kind of getting a little bit closer to that, like kind of seeing these five characters like in the fallout of
Yeah,
Thundera's fall.
actually, so what we did, so in the original cartoon in the Thundercats from the 80s, the
Mm.
three Bengali, lynx-o and Pamara were left behind. They didn't make the transport ship that was getting out of Dodge.
Mm.
Uh, and they were stuck behind. They ended up being rescued by Burbles
Mm.
last minute. We're in the comic, it's different in that they are part of an advance convoy that's sent out
Okay.
prior to Lino and Panthro and the rest of the team being sent out. Um, they're sent out prior to try and find like Claudius, Jaga. They all know that Thundera's days are numbered, and they're trying to ensure the continuation of their population. And so before we send out Lino, before we send out the rest of the crew, these folks are sent out, and as the title indicates, they get lost. They're
Mm.
sent out and they're just never heard from again. They get shot down while they're trying to scope out a viable place for the Thundercats to move to, and their ship is destroyed. They find themselves sort of behind enemy lines in a world that hates cats, like a world where cats don't exist, but that the reputation of cats precedes them. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people see cats as sort of this destructive force that will come in and destroy everything they hold near and dear. And the thunder these Thundercats find themselves behind enemy lines, just trying to survive without a ship, without any sort of communication back to Thundera. Um, and they're basically, as the title implies, they're kind of lost on this planet for a good long time.
Well, I like the idea of like kind of switching it up because, and that's something that I've enjoyed about the Thundercats run right now as a whole, is that it's not just like one to one. Things are getting mixed up, changed around, new stuff's being taken into account. Because nostalgia is great, but you got to bring a little something extra with it.
Sure.
Yeah, you got to bring a little something extra with it. I'm glad to see like it just like every time I read a new issue, it's like I get that familiarity, but I also get a lot of really like cool like alternate takes that it's awesome to see. Like one thing I was curious about too, because you mentioned that some of the stuff that's going to be happening, this is going to be uh kind of tethered to some of the stuff that came up in Thundercats Apex. And if it's a spoiler, I don't want to put it out there. But like if considering how, and I'll just go ahead and say it, the Thundercats Apex was epic.
Thanks.
It was I don't know if you saw my video for it, but I talked about how I was like that man lied to me. He lied to me. He looked me dead in my eye and he lied to me. But no, I loved it because it.
Wait a sec. Were you the one? It was you who asked me who it was, and like,
yeah.
I mean, I can't give that away though, right?
Yeah, no, you can't. You can't. It was all in jest. It was all in jest.
I know. Now that you're saying that, I actually remember getting off that podcast and going, "God damn it!"
Well, but no, I thought it was great though that you put a spin on it.
Right.
That when it happened, I was still shocked.
Perfect. Good. I'm glad. Like I think a few people figured out who it was or assumed who it was, and I was doing my very best just to not answer that question or dodge it whenever it came up. And I think towards the end, I was just telling people straight up that it was Snarf. But yeah, like obviously we want to save those secrets. We want people to have that moment where they experience it on the page and not sort of telegraph it to them in an interview, like a month in advance. So.
Right. Well, I thought you did a great job with it, and it had like a lot of great grounding in it, a lot of good foundation in it to launch off other stuff. Like, is there if obviously we're gonna be seeing Apex again soon, but and correct me if I'm wrong, is this Thundercats Lost? Is it gonna be a series or a one shot?
It's a series.
Similar, okay, so it's gonna be a series.
It's a series. Yeah.
So like, are we gonna see, like, or because the world you laid out in Apex, or like the kind of the greater surroundings that you laid out in Apex, I really liked how you incorporated. Is there any like hope we see more stuff kind of like that, like that greater? Not necessarily have to be Thundera, but like obviously though, like just other locales that are kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like right from the jump in the first issue, we get that. We're gonna see some familiar faces from the cartoon. I don't think it's been spoiled yet. I don't think it's on solicitations. So I don't want to say who the main like sort of bad that they're fighting against is, but it's somebody from the cartoon. So we are bringing that in. But even then, we're kind of like he's similar to how he was in the cartoon. We built him up quite a bit from what that character was, and we've actually built sort of a small cast around them. And particularly, there's one character that's going to be a real driving threat for the Thundercat sauce, and hopefully is going to be sort of one of the big new bads in the Thundercat universe to sort of emerge throughout the series.
Ooh.
And hopefully has some staying power. We'll see.
I mean, you have my attention. You have you have my attention now, because like I have there's I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna say who it is I'm even thinking about, because I don't want to put you on the spot. But I'll just say
it's Snarf. Yeah.
it's not okay. There. Okay. See, that's. See, I told you guys Snarf couldn't be trusted. I told you guys you can't trust a Thundercats character that doesn't talk. I knew the moment that Snarf didn't talk, I knew something was up. He's got secrets. But no, there's lots of really like cool Thundercats characters out there that I feel like people tend to forget about. And that was what I really liked about what you did with Apex, is that you took some of those characters, and like I was like, oh wow, I kind of forgot about these guys. Like,
Right.
So yeah, I will say I have to put this out here, because I think I talked about this earlier on social media, but I got a chance to take a peek at your upcoming Silverhawks, and while I'm not gonna say anything about spoilery here, I just gotta say I gotta tip my hat. If I had a hat like bluegrass, I would tip it. I would tip it to you. It is fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
It is.
I don't even think I've seen the fully completed final one. So you may have seen more of it than I have.
Well, I'll just say this: it was definitely partly metal, partly real. And I think I saw, and I think you even said it when I talked to you last time, like kind of like the Untouchables in space vibe, which I was like when I was like, yep. I was like, this is it. I was like, this is the one. This is the one. But I guess, because like I said, we've kind of already talked before, but I did want to ask just based on how everything's like kind of coming up with both I think Silverhawks is like right at the end of this month, just like was a couple more weeks, I think, or something like that, 2 or 3 more weeks. And then we've also and we got Thundercats Lost like right around the corner as well. Man, I'm very curious to know, like, because we got you just said Thundercats Lost is going to be a series, and I know sometimes with the nature of these things that sometimes you start out like as whether you start like maybe like 5 or 6 or however many some odd issues, like if it's going to be something that's like more of a like shorter, just like spin-off. But is there any hope that we see like maybe a, because I feel like Thundercats already has like a huge cast of characters as is, but like, is there any hope that that Thundercats Lost might be something that runs a bit longer?
Yeah, that's the hope. The hope is, I've got 10 issues planned out, which is kind of usually how I start these things. So the hope is that it does well. If it does even half as well as Thundercats, I think it's doing well. And ideally we can continue it forever. I've got tons of stories I'd like to tell. With the book, I think there's some stuff we do in the first issue that's gonna throw a few people for a loop, and I want to have some time to really sort of expand upon it and sit with some of these things that happen, and really spend time with some of the characters. I think we're doing very similar to in all the books. I think this is something that comes from Nate, the editor, that I think is really good, is that we have like short 4-issue arcs, and then we have like the 5th issue is generally like a standalone thing where we get a chance to really like focus on a single character, like spend some time with them. I know Declan has been great with in his series of like sometimes he'll devote an issue to a character, but like the nature of the story we're telling in Thundercats Lost doesn't really afford us that opportunity. But with these every 5th issue, when we have this sort of standalone, I think we'll have an opportunity to do that, have an opportunity to sort of pump the brakes a little bit and slow down and really spend some time with Bengali or Nico or lynx-o, whoever it is,
Mm.
So yeah, but ideally we go on forever. This I'm writing this on my deathbed, and it's my life's work. Who knows? But comics is really hard as an industry to sort of figure out what's going to hit, what's not, and what's going to last. But I've been cautiously optimistic. I know that Thundercats Apex did really well for Dynamite. They were really happy with it, and I don't know what the sales numbers are on Silverhawks. I tend to not get too uh, ask too many questions about that sort of stuff. I like to just keep my head down and work, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's done well. And for both books, the hope is that we can just keep going.
Mhm. Well, I know I for one am hopeful. I for one am hopeful.
Perfect.
Just based on what I haven't seen anything outside of like just the stuff that the solicits have put out for Thundercats Lost. But if Silverhawks is anything to go by, then I think we're good. I think we're good.
All right.
I think we're good. Uh, it's
Everyone cross their fingers.
everybody fingers, toes, whatever you got. Well, and I'm curious to know too, because you kind of set a really a good kind of visual idea of what to expect from Silverhawks, just in terms of comparisons. So like if you had to compare Thundercats Lost to anything, like what would you say would be kind of like the
like our untouchables in space?
Yeah.
It is a bit there is a bit of like this sort of like Dirty Dozen vibe a little bit, it's got still like a bit of that sort of Western. But I haven't really distilled it down into like the elevator pitch, and maybe I should. But for us, it's more like we wanted to do similar to Thundercats, but the world that they sort of land in and occupy is a world that's really opposed to sort of magic and any other sort of trickery. So everything here is much more tech heavy, and we're dealing with a lot more tech forward sort of stuff. So it's like, yeah, 30 Dozen meets, I don't know, Terminator, not Terminator. I don't know.
One of those things. Well,
Yes.
Well, it's just like I knew from just like from like description alone on like on Apex and on Silverhawks, I was like, yeah, these are like this is everything that like I knew was going to be going into it, like everything I was hoping for. And just like with these characters, like putting them in a new locale, and new sandbox them to kind of run around in, I think is a great opportunity. And I don't know, I hope, because I know that, right now there's a lot of different, like crossover, appeal as of late. I know that, right now they have, I think it's Space Quest that's coming up, and all that other stuff. So like the idea that like you're kind of building, like kind of already kind of setting this thing up to where like we're getting to see like a lot of new stuff. It just makes me more excited for what you can do with it if we actually get to see the series expand more over at Dynamite. I think that right now Thundercats is king. Thundercats is king right now. So yeah, I want to see more of it. And I will just say this, just as a friendly reminder to everyone in the chat. Ways that you probably ask yourself this question all the time: how can I ensure that my favorite comics that I enjoy so much, how can I ensure that they hang around? I will tell you, gentle listener. It is, you go to your local LCS, your LCS, your local comic shop, and say, hey, that Thundercats thing, that Silverhawks thing, can you put that in my pull box? And if you don't know what a pull box is, person behind the counter will tell you. Do those things. It helps out tremendously. Helps out way more than I think most people probably want to believe. But I wanted to know, Ed, if because you've got a lot of, you mentioned something last time when we were talking, and I don't know if you're able to talk about it yet, but you
I'll
mentioned that you've been
try.
doing some stuff for some video games.
Yes, I definitely can't talk about it
Okay.
yet. Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
I do write for video games. Yeah, that's about the extent of what I can say is that I'm
Oh,
doing that. Yeah.
so I don't want, look, so I don't want the red dot site lined up on you. I don't want any, we don't want any of that. That's so we'll let that one go. But
I think I should be able to talk about it in roughly 2 years.
oh
So it's a
wow.
very long development process for this sort of
Oh,
stuff. So it'll take a while.
oh wow. So okay. So well, and honestly, that's okay because it lets me
Yes.
know that it's gonna it's taking it's taking the right time. It's taking the right time to cook.
They're letting it marinate. Yep, exactly.
But see now, like I'm gonna, so but my mind is a steel trap for the weirdest shit. So I will, if somewhere between now and then, I will probably bug you about it again.
Yeah, that's all right, man. As soon as I can talk about it, I definitely will. Because it's eating me up not to be able to talk about it. 'Cause I'm pretty excited about it, but just the
Well,
way it is.
you know, it's the nature of the business. It's the nature of the business. Yeah, in NDAs and stuff of that nature, you kind of have to. You do kind of slick have to treat it like Fight Club.
Yeah.
You can't talk about Fight Club. But let me ask. So the with everything that you've done so far, with Apex, because I really wanted to pick your brain about this.
Okay.
And I don't know how much you can say because, like I said, the first issue is still relatively relatively new. But when the reveal of who Apex truly is, yeah, by the time we get to the end of it, and I guess by now I will just say spoiler alert for people that I feel by this point you should probably go read that if you haven't done so already. But spoiler alert for Apex is that he is an alternate version of a Thundercat we already have. So what actually inspired the choice to make it Lion-O?
So when I came into it, it was already that was established. That was that thing that came from
Really?
Declan and Nate. So they were like they had wanted to do this uh this Apex story that was him. Um I think I'm trying to remember how much of the stuff I put in and what was already baked in, but like I think
Mm,
it was him. It was him from the future. That was already sort of there. Some of the stuff I got to sort of have a hand on is that what he looks like under the mask. That was a design that came from me through like very rough Photoshop work of hacking together some other people's artwork and doodling all over it, and then it was refined by Declan, and then further refined by Rafa. Um, but the idea, so that was the whole idea, was that that's who it was, and that I had to kind of sit on it. That was part of the gig when I got hired for it,
mm,
but I had to hide it. But like it was one of those things for like trying to figure out how long into the series we go with into that issue we go without fully revealing who it is. And I can't remember because I know he pulls back his hood and we see his face,
mm.
but I don't think he actually says who he is
No.
until a later scene.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing that we wanted, that sort of 1-2 punch of like, we'll show people that he's a cat and maybe even let them speculate coloring wise and stuff like that. Maybe most people could guess. But yeah, that was a thing that was already sort of established when I came in. And so my job was to build the sort of mystery around it and reveal it. And uh, sort of felt like they had the idea that he was from the future, but not too much more. Like, so the fact that he was after the Book of Omens was something that came from me. That was me picking up a thread that sort of Declan had put down in the original Thundercats. The idea that, of what had happened to the Thundercats in the future and why he was here and what he was trying to do was stuff that I sort of baked into it. Um, and what he was after in this issue in order to fund his crusade was something that came from my end. But yeah,
Well,
does that answer?
no, that
Okay.
100% answers. It just, I just thought it was such like an interesting choice because it's always tricky ground when taking a character that's traditionally thought of as a good guy.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like the good, like the goodest of good guys.
He's pure, right? Like,
you're
yeah.
right. And then but I will say this, it all like, as I was kind of like in my head doing like kind of backtracking into what I had read thus far, like taking nostalgia out of the situation, out of the equation. I was thinking back to everything that had been set up thus far, and I was like, when you kind of look back on it, well, yeah, I mean, it's still Lion-O, that we've been following over on Declan series. There are some moments where he's you can tell there's something like he's got a lot going on. He's got a lot of plates spinning that he's
sure.
trying to do a lot of adjusting like on the fly. And there's even some moments where I don't know if this was intentional on Declan or Drew's part. It probably was, because if it's there, obviously it was meant to be there. But there's been some moments where Lion-O's kind of come off a little scary. Like,
right,
where he's like he's a little snappy. He's he's not as I don't want to say not as leaderly, but I mean just like you look at this guy like, man, this guy's kind of like, man, I wonder what's going on with Lion-O, man. Did he wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? Like, what's going on? But
he's figuring it out, right?
Yeah, it's like he's just, and he's doing the best that he can. He's doing the best that he can under what I would say are unfavorable circumstances, to say the least.
Fair, yeah.
But when you get to the point where where he's Apex, and like he's in such a very he's in a way his mindset and how he responds to things, it's like, oh my god, like what happened to this guy that had pushed him this far, like what could have. And then we see that there's a point where it's revealed that like he basically comes from like a future where the worst possible things that could happen did happen. And it made it even more interesting just seeing how, especially considering I think by the time that your issue came out, we hadn't even really quite seen Mum-Ra the Ever Living.
Right.
And it was like, oh, so and to see that, and I was like, oh my god. So I was like, yeah, dude, this is insane. And it's man, I like I said, I tip my hat. I don't have a hat, but I tip it. If I had a hat, I would put one on. But I have to tip it to you.
There was definitely a lot of stuff in there where we wanted to sort of like put things on the table, but not fully explain them as well. Like how the hell did he become Apex the Ever Living? Like, and clearly there's a Mum-Ra connection, but like what is that?
Mm-hmm.
We don't fully explain that, and that's intentional. There was a version of my first script where I did go into more depth about explaining it, but we decided to pull it back because we want to save some stuff to reveal about him in the mainline Thundercats book. So yeah, it was a tough it was a tough balancing act in terms of like giving you information, but also holding back enough so that you get enough to know how he could become this way, but you don't get the full picture. So it was a tough gig, but I was really happy with how it came out.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of glad that you did take that approach, because like leaving that mystery, I think that was the correct move. Like, because I think sometimes no shade at anime, but I feel like anime has a really big problem with this, is like over explaining stuff sometimes. Like, yeah, the story stops so the bad guy can tell you exactly how his power works
Of
because
course, yeah.
reasons. You know, like if it would have been one of those things where like where Apex stops, like, hey, by the way, this is how all this
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like I'm like, you know what, man, I kind of want that mystery. I kind of like that mystery being there. And I guess, man, so let me ask you this: how likely do you think it would be? And I don't want to put you in the hot seat if you can't say, but I've seen Dynamite's clearly all in on Thundercats content, expanding the world of Thundercats, and all that good stuff. And one thing I've really appreciated about series two is the treatment of its villains, like giving them a lot more depth and like fleshing them out more. What would be the odds of maybe I don't know if you could do it as a series. It'd probably have to be a one shot. But what would be the odds of like maybe a little insight on Mumra? Like, what do you think about that?
I don't know. Like, it feels like it's. I don't know if Declan already has something planned for that,
Mhm.
but it feels like it's very much in line with the kind of stuff that he's doing. So if he were to do a Mumra one shot, or
Mhm.
like I was talking about those character focused fifth issues,
Mhm.
um, I can see him doing that. I don't know definitely if he has one of those planned,
Mhm.
but never say never, I guess. I know in Thundercats Lost, one of our fifth issue things is villain focus. So like we
Ooh.
do have that opportunity to sort of meet and get to know more about uh, one of the characters that we'll be introducing. They get introduced right at the end of the first issue and
Okay.
become a major player throughout the rest of the series.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
All right.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's Snarf. Or well, we've already seen Snarf, but I want Snarf from the future. I want
Right.
evil Snarf from the future. That's what I'm y'all heard it here first. But no, but no, I think that, man, the and I wonder what your opinion is of this, because it's something I actually mentioned in my video for Apex, was that when you have like evil dark mirror like versions of like already existing characters, it's always like a tricky tightrope to write that character in such a way, present that character in such a way so that like it is believable and
Mhm.
that it doesn't immediately like I guess cause people to have like, I mean, people are gonna have knee jerk reactions. That's always gonna happen.
Sure.
But like
Yeah.
having like a full on like nerd meltdown on whatever social media app they use at the time. But but I'm curious to know like what was walking that tightrope like for doing that with a character like Lion-O, when like we've kind of seen in the past where some characters that come out, they initially start out as popular. I always like to use the Batman Who
Mhm.
Laughs as an example. This character was very popular, but kind of overstayed his welcome and never really went away. Like how like what in terms of like structuring Apex, like were there any like typical things you tried to avoid with him as a character?
Yeah, like I didn't want to make him like he's not like he's kind of a prick, but he's not evil, right? Like
Right.
he doesn't anytime he uh is in a fight, it's not a fight he started.
Mhm.
He's not out there sort of just killing for the sake of killing, but he definitely goes further than what Lionel might. Really, I just kind of like start from a position is that this is a guy who took one approach, to life, and he took the approach of being good and trying to do the right thing always, and it didn't work. Like when we find out what happens in the future,
Mhm.
it didn't work for him. So you know, if you're trying to sort of fix that thing, I think he realizes that approaching it in the same way is not going to work. So he's a little bit more fierce. He's a little bit more intense. He's older, and he's suffered a ton of grief. So I'm trying to write it through that sort of window. There's still sort of, I think, like a little glimmer of Lino in there, like some
Mm.
flashes, but it's definitely, like a version that's not taking any crap anymore, right? Like
He's like for all my Mass Effect heads, it's like Renegade Ship. Like
right.
not a not a bad guy, just a
He's very driven. He's very
yeah.
focused. He's got the shit he wants to get done.
Right. Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I always appreciate that. I think that it's well, and I also really like the fact that yeah, he doesn't really strike me as like a. I don't even really like calling him like. I don't even like calling him a villain per se. More of an antagonist, or maybe like an obstacle.
Right.
Because he doesn't really, because yeah, when you put it like that, and I think back to it, it's like, yeah, he actually gives people multiple opportunities to like back down.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone save like one person, I think, has an opportunity to kind of walk away,
Mm,
and they don't, and so he deals with them. So he's still got that moment, like where he's like he's not just launching straight into a fight, right?
mm.
And Yeah, so there's still a little Lino in there, and yeah, I don't know, like I think like to label him a protagonist or antagonist is
Mm,
difficult because I think his goals, what he's trying to do, is very valid. It's very honorable. It's right. Um, but that's definitely going to clash with present day Thundercats and their own moral code. And
mm.
so it makes him an antagonist in some ways to them, but he's complicated. Yeah, I don't know. Anti-hero is the right thing either. It's not quite that
Yeah.
either.
Well, yeah, sometimes even better is when you can't really like when you can't really just like put a label on a character. Like I think that sometimes can be the appeal of them. It's like, well, okay, yeah, who's they're on their own side, of course, but like, are they, you know, moral ambiguity can definitely make for good storytelling, I think. Especially in something like this where your main characters are very like they're one thing. Like, the
Yeah.
Thundercats are objectively the good guys. Like there's no there's no debating that. Mum-Ra's objectively the bad guy. Like in this.
A hundred
Um
percent. Yeah.
but and I one thing I did and I don't know because this I think this was it was technically in the first appearance
Awesome.
of Apex, but I'm not sure if it was anything that you had any input in. But like the whole like kind of a background plot of why the mutants were already on Third Earth when they got there, like and what and like how Declan is shaping that. I don't know how much you can say to or about that.
That's all Declan. So I didn't
Mhm.
have much input in that regard. Those are sort of things I knew going into my issue and going into Lost, but that's all
Mhm.
Declan and Drew.
Okay. Then I will say this. I think that everything that as an entire collective, everything y'all been doing is fantastic. It's been like mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful work. I did want to ask you real quick though, like because you've been doing like say you've been kind of doing a little bit of everything across the board. And I know that right now, I know Declan. While he's been plenty busy, Thundercats have been keeping him plenty tied down. But I know he's taken an opportunity here and there to do a little X-Men stuff. Is there any any potential hope we see you take another shot
Uh,
at anything over on that side of things?
there's no big two work in the pipes at the moment.
Mm.
I do have, in addition to Silverhawks and Thundercats, I have 4 books at different stages of development.
Oh
So
wow.
um, I think 2 of them should be announced fairly soon. They're 2 creator-owned books that
Mm.
are pretty much straight crime, which is I'm a big fan
Oh.
of crime fiction. And
Mm.
then I've got 2 other books that are kind of sitting in the hopper that are one's kind of I don't know, like sci-fi light almost, like modern
Mm.
day sort of sci-fi. And then the other one is a straight horror book that probably will be out later this year or early 2026.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm working on stuff, but I think that yeah, I'm pretty at present. I don't think I could take on anything else. I'm kind of overworked as it is, like doing 9 to 5 on the video game, and then
Yeah.
having to work after hours to write everything else that I'm working on. It's it's a lot.
I was gonna say, how do you, completely unrelated to any other stuff, but just to this, how do you find that balance? Like, how do you find what's the secret? What's the
Uh,
secret to that?
I I'm not sure, and when I find out, I'll let you know. Uh, right now, it's just mostly I just working myself to death, which I
Mm.
don't. It's not a thing to be proud of or anything like that.
Mm.
It's just mostly what I try to do is I try to get up a couple of hours earlier before I start work. Because I work remotely, so I'm
Mm.
just logging in from my computer here anyway. Um, so I try to take a couple hours in the morning
Mm.
to work on stuff that I've got going on. So like write a page or 2 or whatever. If I'm on a roll, I can get through to like 3 if I'm like on fire. Uh, that's very rare though. That's if I have
Yeah.
everything clearly in my head. Then I work 9 to 5, and then after 5, typically I'll take like another hour or 2 to write. Sometimes I'll write on my lunch, and then I actually take Saturdays off always,
Mm.
no matter what's going on. That's why I tend to not. I won't do like podcasts.
Mm.
I won't like Saturday is a time that I spend time, with my wife and my daughter, and we go out and we do stuff, and
Mm.
uh, I try and get away. Like I try not to do any writing. I try not to do any work. My wife and I over the last year have really gotten into photography. So, when my kid's working on Saturdays, we'll go out and we'll just take photos of stuff, right? We'll take our cameras out and just go on photo walks and photograph stuff. And that I like because it gets me out of what I'm doing during the week. And it's like almost like a palate cleanser. It just refreshes my brain a little bit and gives me other muscles to work with.
Right.
And sometimes on Sundays I'll get a couple hours of work, but I really try and do everything throughout the week. And I am sometimes working 11, 12 hours a day, but I try, like I said, I try to get up early so that you know 6, 7 o'clock I can still knock off for the day. And I do the most of the cooking here, and I'll just go cook, and that's another thing that helps me
Mhm.
sort of decompress. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy being in the kitchen a lot, as long as nobody else is in the kitchen. Uh,
Kindred spirits, I see.
yes.
I think you said something really important though. About balance, like work life balance, like having a hobby, something like outside of the spectrum of what you probably spend all day doing anyway. Yeah, it's something I've been kind of taking a peek at myself, just like trying to like, oh hey, I'm literally sitting here all day at my desk doing a thing. I should probably go out into the world and like
Yep.
get sunlight and maybe see people that are not ones and zeros in front of me. Uh, but I actually think that that's something incredibly important. And honestly, I tip my hat to you because it sounds like you get a lot done. For
I do.
yeah.
Some weeks are better than others, but yeah,
Mhm.
for the most part, I just try and keep moving forward, like a shark, just to get everything done.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think I think give yourself a little more time. Give yourself a little more time. But I think you're doing fantastic stuff. So
I appreciate it, man.
I I think for just to and I don't know if I actually got to ask you this last time, but just considering that you do a lot of writing, you write for a living. Would you have any advice for for people that want to do something, or even if it's not just writing, but just to work in a creative field?
Hmm.
What advice would just based on your own personal experience would you give?
My advice is just to do it and like
Mm,
don't talk about it, just do it. And I
mhm,
think that's a thing, that's a trap a lot of people fall into is they're like, if you're a writer or an artist, you spend 3 years doing world building on a thing that
mhm.
you never actually work on. Like, I think world building is important, but at a certain point, world building also becomes a different form of procrastination. Um,
Yeah.
I th I think that like like if I'm specific about comics, the sort of advice I tend to give, which I you know tend to like when I'm on panels call it the murder book method because this
Mhm,
is the method I use when I uh tried breaking in, and that is like just start small, like if you want to write, if you want to draw, do like a 5-page story, do no more than 10-page story for your first thing, and do a bunch of those. Don't just do one, do a bunch. And these are stories that have beginning, they have a middle, they have an end. um Write the script, give yourself an actual deadline, if you're working on things, just to keep yourself honest, because it's very easy if you don't to just have it as a thing in a drawer that you think about but never actually touch, right? You
mhm.
put a little bit of time aside, half an hour, whatever, every day, and just work on it. Um, and it like if your goal is to become like a published comic book artist or writer, I think then the goal is you find somebody to work with. Ideally somebody I was talking about this yesterday with someone else on a different podcast, and
Mhm.
this is a tough metric, but like for me, when I started out writing, I always tried to work with artists who I thought were almost like better than I was. Like I had to prove
Mhm.
myself to when I was writing. Like
Mm.
you want to be able you want to like force yourself to sort of impress. Like first and foremost, the stuff you do should be for yourself, should be to appease you as an audience first, because you have to have that sort of attachment to it. But yeah, start small. Do like the 5-page stories. Do 10-page stories. Try and if you're a writer, try and get them drawn. If you're an artist and you don't know, you don't want to write, try and find a writer to work with, and then when it's done, just put them up online for free for people to read. Print mini comics, or print them and go to shows and hand them out, or if you have enough, have a table and try and sell stuff. Try and meet other people in your community, try and get honest feedback. I think one thing that is really important is being open to feedback from people, listening to feedback. I talk a lot about when I went to fine arts after high school because I wanted to be an artist originally, and I think it was my 2D or my painting class, I can't remember. We would create a work of art. It's a painting, whatever it is, and then we would have critiques on your work, and so you would have to stand in front of the class, next to your work of art. So whatever you did, you have painting, you have a sculpture, you stand next to it, and then one by one, everyone in the class could go and give you a critique. And it's not like it's not necessarily bad critiques, right? Like
Right.
maybe it's amazing, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is amazing," but you get 30 different opinions, and the idea is that you listen to them, and not everyone's going to be right. But if
Mhm.
you start hearing the same thing repeatedly, then that's probably right. Um, and the thing that we did when we stood there is we weren't allowed to say anything. You just had to listen. You weren't allowed to defend. You couldn't say a word.
Mhm.
And it's tough. It's really hard because, even, now with like as I said, I do photography and I go to it's interesting because this is a new hobby for me. And I go to there's a photography guild here through one of the art studio at the art gallery. So it's a photography art gallery, and they have like pro photographers who give up a Saturday once a month. And if you're an aspiring photographer like I am, you can go and you can bring prints of your work, and you can sit there and it's the same thing. You have a bunch of photographers who know what they're talking about, who can critique your photography and give you pointers, say what might be better, you frame it, whatever. Um, and it's tough even now for me. I've been after having been through this to sit there and take it in and not defend, right? Like you can't be like, oh, it was a cloudy day, so that's why I didn't get a nice shadow or whatever it is. There's no excuses to give. You just sort of you take it in and process it. And so
Mm.
that's I think a very valuable skill that not everyone has to be able to sit there and just listen to the critiques, walk away with it, and then process it. And not everything's going to be right, but also on
Right.
the other hand, not everything is going to be wrong, right? And you have
Mm.
to sort of filter through and figure out what is that. So, but going way back to it, just stop talking about doing the work and just do the work. Just put out some work, put some comic books together. If you want to be a comic book writer, just write some scripts. You can find scripts online, to use as a sort of a template.
Mhm.
There's a million of like, Jim Zub's got a bunch of stuff on how to write. I know Kelly Sue DeConnick has a really good Tumblr thing on writing and her approach to it. That I think would be really invaluable to people. Artists, obviously study, um, but just doing the work, just producing. There's no substitute for producing work. Talking about
Yeah.
it doesn't mean shit, right? You just got
Yeah.
to do it.
No, you're 100% correct. You're
Uh,
100% correct.
so that's it. I rambled there, but yeah,
No,
just
no, you were
small.
good.
Start small, man. The one thing I run into a lot, and it's mostly writers that I see this with more than artists, but they want to do some sort of like Dune style, Game of Thrones style, multi-volume epic that's going to run 300 issues like Cerebus, and that's never going to work for your
No.
first at bat, right?
No.
Um, you need to figure out your voice. You need to figure out your style, and then the best way to do that is with a 5-page thing. Even if you think you can do 300 issues, by the time you're at the end of your second issue, you're going to hate the stuff in your first issue if you haven't developed your voice, and you're just going to keep starting over. So that's it. Just start small, put the stuff out there. And the thing that I think I didn't mention already is that getting those 5 pages out, getting those 10 pages out, having that sense of completion is something that is so vital and so important. To have this thing that you can hold in your hand and just say, I did it. I made this. This is a thing that came from me. Or if you're working with an artist, or if you're an artist working with a writer, this is a thing that came from us. This is a thing that we made and put out in the world. And there's having that sense of accomplishment, I think, is really important. I think you need that to continue, and you can't rest on it. It's not like you do one thing and then like you're done. You got to keep going. But every time you finish something, it's you're putting a piece of you out in the world that I think is important. It's an important thing to do.
No, I a thousand, I 1,000% agree with that. It is, man. Yeah, I can't. I know a lot of creative people. I consider myself a creative person. I've seen what you're talking about a lot. Yeah, the different levels of procrastination and a lot of great ideas, but no follow through
Sure.
to bring it to life, and it's difficult to do. But I think that the juice is usually worth the squeeze if you really want to do it.
Absolutely.
But first and foremost, I don't know if you do this, but you should You should teach some classes. You should teach classes.
I don't. Yeah.
Because I was just sitting
my
here.
time's all spoken for.
Well, like the whole time I was like, I should be writing this down. Like this is going to be on the test.
Well, good thing you have it recorded.
I have it recorded. So yeah, it's one of those things. I'm an unintentional great note taker. But no, Ed, I wanted to say, for one, always enjoy chatting with you about, anything that you're working on. Thanks,
man.
But I definitely, I can't wait for everyone to see what you've got coming up here with Thundercats Lost and Silverhawks. I think people are in for a real treat.
Well, let's hope.
I know y'all are in for a treat. I know, like we're gonna manifest this. We're gonna manifest because you know why? Because all of you in the chat, y'all are gonna go to your LCS. You're gonna say, hey, can I get that Thundercats Lost? Can I get the whole series in my pull box? Can I get all the Silverhawks in my pull box? And we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna just keep growing the Thundercats universe. Just let us keep expanding. We're gonna make it happen. And if any of y'all have enjoyed this conversation and you want to see more from Ed, I actually have in the description, as well as on the Twitch side, there's commands. You can use !, guest, where it should pull up all of it should actually pull up all of Ed's like social stuff, all the social media stuff, and should also if you do ! works, there'll be some things that I kind of picked out for you guys to go check out to get more of an idea and get more familiar with Ed's work, and also put ! Thunder. Do that. It will bring up a link to the Dynamite website. If you don't have an LCS in your area, that's a really good way to go and pick up a copy of Thundercats Lost #1. So you guys go do that thing.
Awesome.
Anyway, and I guess Ed, do you have anything else that I know you? Well, obviously we got Thundercats Lost, Silverhawks, but yeah. Anything else that you wanted to promote before we get out?
I think this week I did a Creep Show story that is in the Creep Show #5 through Skybound. Big fan of Creep Show from back in the day. I'm a big horror junkie, so getting to write short horror is always fun. So that one I think just came out, or it's just about to come out. Today's Tuesday, isn't it? So tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
I think it's out tomorrow. So yeah, check that out. It's a fun little 10-page horror romp in the style of Creep Show. And yeah, I think that's it. Other than like I said, a lot of my stuff is like sitting here waiting to be announced. So I know that one of my books is out in July, so it's probably will be announced, I don't know, March or April. And I'm not sure on the others.
Well, I was gonna say, y'all have links down there. Y'all know what to do with them. And yeah, I guess until next time, everybody, thank y'all for showing up. Go do the things I've asked you to do. Go click the links, go click the buttons, and yeah, get ready, because y'all are in for a wild ride over these next few months. Anyway, we out of here. Peace.